Most cars today are designed to be replaced, but once upon a time, engineers built machines so tough that junkyards became jealous. Engines ran 500,000 miles, doors still closed with a bank vault thunk, and even after decades of neglect, they started like it was day one. These are 11 old cars that were built to last forever. Number 11, 1967 to 1977 Ford F-150. When Ford built the 5th generation F-Series, nobody cared about touchscreen infotainment or seat massagers. What mattered was whether your truck could spend a decade hauling hay, tow a boat on weekends, and still start every Monday morning, even after the oil had the consistency of maple syrups. This was the last era before computers started babysitting drivers. Everything was mechanical. Carburetors you could rebuild on your kitchen table, steel bumpers that doubled as rescue tools, and manual gearboxes that could outlast 3 owners. Under the hood, engines like the 300 cubic inch inline 6 and 351 Windsor V8 became legends for one reason: they refused to die. Farmers nicknamed the inline 6 the tractor motor because it would idle all day at 600 RPM, sip fuel like a nervous accountant, and never complain. It was understressed, overbuilt, and tuned for a lifetime of abuse. These trucks weren't glamorous. They were gritty, paint faded into a perfect patina that restorers now try to recreate with clear coat kits. The bench seats turned to dust, yet the engines kept purring like a distant thunderstorm. Even Ford didn't realize what they'd created. The F-Series became the pickup that defined reliability across generations. From oil fields to Main Street, it became the blueprint for toughness. A machine that did its job so well, it outlived the people who bought it new. Today, you'll still find them parked behind barns, coated in rust and nostalgia. Some get resurrected by enthusiasts, others are still working, dragging logs, towing tractors, or teaching their grandkids how to drive stick. Number 10, 1992 to 2001, Honda Prelude. Before the Civic Type R and before VTEC kicked in became a meme, there was the Honda Prelude, a car that quietly blended performance, precision, and near bulletproof reliability. The Prelude wasn't just a coupe, it was Honda's love letter to driving itself. Designed in the 1980s and perfected through the 90s, it represented the sweet spot between analog engineering and modern reliability. Every bolt, every gasket, every piece of that car was made to endure time, not trends. While the NSX got the fame, the Prelude got the endurance. Its engines, the H22A and H23A, were marvels of balance and engineering humility. Tuned more for harmony than horsepower, they were built to run forever if you remembered one simple rule: keep the oil clean and it'll treat you like family. Even the technology inside, like Honda's 4WS system, aged better than most cars' power windows. It was mechanical, elegant, and made the Prelude corner like it was dancing on rails. Rust tried to take them, teenagers tried to modify them, decades of daily commuting tried to wear them down, but somehow they kept starting, revving, and carving corners. Proof that reliability doesn't have to be boring. Number 9, 1978 to 1987, Buick Regal. Before Buick became a symbol of retirement, it accidentally built one of the most feared street machines in America. The Buick Regal was supposed to be a sensible mid-sized car for people who wore gold watches and tucked in their polo shirts. But then GM's engineers got bored and turned it into a legend. The Grand National was the dark side of that story. Black paint, black wheels, and a turbocharged V6 that embarrassed Corvettes. No chrome, no flair. Just a silent promise that if you tried to race it, you'd regret it. But underneath all that attitude was something else: longevity. The 3.8-liter V6 wasn't a fragile, high-strung sports engine. It was built from cast iron, overbuilt internals, and mechanical simplicity. Add a turbo, keep the boost conservative, and you had a power plant that could take decades of abuse. Owners often joke that these cars will outlive their transmissions, their turbochargers, and even their owners, because when the body fades, the engine just keeps going. Many Grand Nationals still roam the streets today, running on original blocks and factory turbos. Some have over 300,000 miles and still spool like it's 1987. Even the regular Regal models without the black paint or boost proved indestructible. They were the quiet workhorses of suburbia, outlasting newer cars that were supposed to replace them. In an era when GM was accused of cutting corners, Buick did the opposite. They built a car so solid, it's still terrorizing quarter miles, and car meets nearly 40 years later. Number 8, 1984 to 1989, Porsche 944. The Porsche 944 was never supposed to be a forever car. It was supposed to be an entry-level Porsche, something attainable, practical, and cheaper to build than a 911. But in classic German fashion, cheap still meant over-engineered to the point of obsession. Built during an era when Porsche refused to cut corners, the 944 was designed with balance in mind, literally. With its engine in the front and transaxle in the rear, it had perfect 50-50 weight distribution. That same precision carried through every bolt and bearing. Nothing was wasted, nothing was rushed. The 2.5-liter inline 4, derived from half a 928's V8, was built to last longer than most people's attention spans. It wasn't exotic, but it was durable, torquey, and famously easy to maintain. And when properly serviced, these engines regularly crossed 300,000 miles, quietly humiliating cars that cost 5 times as much. What really makes the 944 timeless is how unbothered it feels by age. The doors still close with that heavy German thud. The steering feels mechanical, pure, unfiltered. It's the kind of car that asks you to drive, not just steer. Yes, the timing belts need love. Yes, parts can be expensive, but as any 944 owner will tell you, replace it once and it's good for another 30 years. Today, while many 911s sit in climate-controlled garages, the 944 soldiers on daily driven, tracked, and admired for one simple reason: it refuses to die. Number 7. 1990 to 2000 Toyota Camry XV10. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't fast, and it definitely wasn't cool, but the 1990s Toyota Camry quietly became one of the most indestructible cars ever put on the road. This was the Camry that earned Toyota its reputation for bulletproof reliability. Before accountants, cost-cutting, and crossovers took over, the XV10 generation was engineered with the kind of perfectionism that borders on madness. Toyota's internal goal wasn't to sell the most cars, it was to build the most trusted one. Engineers obsessed over the smallest details: door seals that would last decades, transmissions that ran smoother after 100,000 miles than most do brand new, and engines that could idle for hours without breaking a sweat. The 5 SFE 4-cylinder and 1 MZFE V6 became the gold standard for longevity. Owners have clocked 500,000 miles without major repairs, and many of those cars are still daily driven today. There was nothing special about its looks or performance, but that was the point. The XV10 Camry was Toyota's declaration that reliability was luxury. It could survive teenage drivers, neglected oil changes, and brutal heat, all while humming along like a sewing machine. Taxi fleets bought them, families passed them down like heirlooms. Mechanics both loved and hated them, loved because they never broke, hated because they never needed fixing. Decades later, the XV10 isn't just a car, it's a time capsule. From a moment when Toyota quality wasn't a slogan, it was a warning to the rest of the industry. Number 6. 1981 to 1991 Volvo 740 and 760. If reliability had a shape, it would probably look like a brick. And in the 1980s, Volvo leaned into that idea. The 740 and 760 weren't designed to turn heads. They were designed to survive winters, moose collisions, and teenage drivers all at once. They were cars for people who valued staying alive more than arriving fast. Built in Sweden, tested in the Arctic, and assembled like industrial furniture, the 740 and 760 were absurdly over-engineered. The body panels were thick, the engines were unkillable, and the interiors aged like oak, solid, square, and creaky in all the right ways. The red block engines, particularly the B2030F, became legends for one reason: they just don't quit. Simple cast iron blocks, low compression, and conservative tuning meant they could run on low-octane fuel, bad maintenance, or even mild neglect without complaint. Some owners joked that you could drain the oil, replace it with black coffee, and it would still make it home. They weren't fast, but they didn't need to be. Volvo marketed them as family tanks, and they earned that reputation. Taxi companies in Europe ran them well past 500,000 miles. Rural families used them to haul trailers, kids, and dogs, sometimes all at once, across frozen landscapes. Even rust had a hard time winning. Many 740 and 760 are still on the road, often outliving the garages they were parked in. The design might look outdated today, but that's part of the charm. These cars were built with a philosophy that no longer exists: safety and durability above all else. Owning one now isn't about performance, it's about principle. Number 5. 1990 to 1998 Subaru Legacy Wagon. Before crossovers took over the world, there was the Subaru Legacy Wagon, the original do-it-all family car that could go anywhere, survive anything, and still make it home for dinner. Built in the early 90s, this was Subaru at its most honest. No turbo hype, no touchscreen gimmicks, just solid engineering born from rally roots and mountain weather. The legacy wagon wasn't built for speed, it was built for dependability. At its heart was the EJ22 engine, a flat 4 so tough it's practically a legend. It was understressed, underrated, and nearly impossible to kill. The timing belt rarely failed, the block could take abuse that would shred most engines, and the simplicity of the design meant you could fix it in your driveway with a basic tool set and a strong cup of coffee. But what really set the legacy apart was its attitude. It didn't care about prestige. It cared about perseverance. It could plow through snowdrifts, cross muddy fields, and haul kayaks, kids, and groceries without breaking a sweat. In New England and the Pacific Northwest, the legacy wagon became a cultural icon. Families ran them for decades. College students inherited them. Outdoor enthusiasts modified them with roof tents and called them home. And when you saw one with 300,000 miles on the odometer, you didn't ask how. You asked only 300. Even now, 30 years later, many are still running, usually with a few dents, a new clutch, and a permanent scent of wet dog and adventure. Number 4. 1970 to 1977 Datsun 240Z. Before Nissan became a global giant, it was Datsun, a scrappy underdog trying to prove that Japan could build sports cars as good as the Europeans. And in 1970, they didn't just prove it, they built something that refused to die. The Datsun 240Z was elegant, affordable, and shockingly reliable. It looked like a mini Jaguar E-Type, but came with Japanese engineering that laughed in the face of maintenance bills. The 2.4-liter inline-6 under the hood wasn't exotic, but it was durable, simple carburetors, bulletproof internals, and the kind of smoothness that made even British mechanics jealous. Owners pushed them hard. Long road trips, amateur races, brutal summers, and the 240Z just kept running. In an age when rust was the enemy, many of these cars survived thanks to sheer mechanical grit and an enthusiastic fan base that refused to let them die. Even decades later, many still run their original engines. Collectors love them because they're not fragile. They're dependable pieces of history, and when restored properly, the 240Z doesn't just look timeless, it feels timeless. The car's legacy runs deep. It showed that reliability and passion could live in the same machine, something few cars before or after ever achieved. The 240Z wasn't built to be disposable. It was built to be remembered. Number 3, a 1984 to 1990 Saab 900 Turbo. The Saab 900 Turbo was weird, gloriously, unapologetically weird. It was the kind of car that could only come from engineers who used to design fighter jets. And somehow, that's exactly what happened. Born out of Sweden's aerospace industry, the 900 Turbo wasn't just tough. It was stubbornly immortal. Everything about it screamed over engineering. The body was galvanized to resist rust. The ignition key sat between the seats because Saab thought it was safer there during a crash. And the engines? They were built like aviation turbines, capable of running 500,000 miles with little more than oil and optimism. The 2.0-liter turbocharged inline 4 wasn't delicate. It was agricultural, strong enough to handle high boost pressures and low-quality fuel without a hint of protest. The gearbox was designed to survive torque levels the factory never intended, and even the heating system felt like it could warm a small house. In cold climates, the Saab 900 became legend. You could leave it buried in snow for a week, turn the key, and it would start like it had been waiting for you the whole time. Mechanics loved them because they were logical. Owners loved them because they were loyal. Even now, decades later, Saab loyalists treat these cars like family members. They name them, preserve them, and trade stories about the one that hit 400,000 miles without a rebuild. Sure, Saab is gone, but the 900 Turbo refuses to accept that. It's still out there, burbling through the cold, proving that weird ideas sometimes make the toughest machines. Number 2, 1986 to 1991 BMW E33 series. Before BMWs became rolling tech demos, they built something that didn't need software to feel alive. The E33 series wasn't just a car, it was precision, distilled. Introduced in the mid-1980s, the E30 represented an era when BMW's slogan, "The ultimate driving machine," wasn't marketing, it was a mission statement. Everything about the car was engineered for balance, simplicity, and longevity. The chassis was rigid but not brittle. The suspension was firm but forgiving, and under the hood, the M20 M20 and M40 inline sixes were as reliable as they were refined. These weren't overpowered engines. They were masterpieces of mechanical harmony. Change the oil, treat them halfway decently, and they'd run forever. Even the interior design reflected that philosophy. Analog gauges, solid switchgear, and tactile feedback on everything. The E30 was built for people who wanted to feel connected to their car, not just drive it. And while enthusiasts today chase them for their classic looks and rear-wheel drive purity, the real reason so many E30s still exist is because they were built to survive. Rusted? You can fix it. Crashed? You can rebuild it. Blown head gasket? Easy. You don't throw an E30 away, you resurrect it. Some E30s have crossed 400,000 miles on original drivetrains. Others live out second lives as track cars, drifting legends, or daily commuters. It's rare to find a car that's both collectible and practical, but the E30 managed it effortlessly. Decades later, it's still one of the few BMWs that feels more mechanical than digital, a time capsule from when driving meant connection, not calibration. Number 1, 1990 to 1997, Lexus LS400. When Lexus launched in 1989, nobody expected Japan's newest luxury brand to rewrite the rules of automotive engineering. But the LS400 didn't just challenge the world's best, it outlasted them. This was the car that made Mercedes nervous and forced BMW to rethink what reliability meant. It was engineered not by a marketing team, but by a small army of perfectionists obsessed with silence, precision, and durability. Toyota's engineers reportedly dismantled a dozen Mercedes S-classes to understand their secrets, and then overbuilt everything. The result was the one UZFE, a 4.0-liter V8 so smooth and so indestructible that mechanics still call it the forever engine. All aluminum, over-engineered, and practically immune to neglect, it can easily surpass 500,000 miles with nothing more than routine maintenance. Every part of the LS400 was tested beyond reason. Door hinges were opened and closed hundreds of thousands of times. The dashboard was baked, frozen, and baked again to ensure not a single squeak. Even the exhaust system was polished internally, not for performance, but to make it last longer. It wasn't just reliable, it was surgical. Owners joked that the only thing that could kill an LS400 was boredom. Taxi drivers in the Middle East ran them until the odometer stopped counting. In the US, many still glide down highways with their original drivetrains, running smoother at 300,000 miles than most cars do at 30,000.